All right. Good morning, everyone. It's your boy Rome. This morning, we're going to go over basically the same things that I did on yesterday. As I mentioned before, I was having some problems with my audio microphone. I guess somehow I neglected to make sure that the receiver for the Rode Wireless Go was actually turned on. So that's my fault. My bad. Okay, so starting out today, what we're going to do is we're going to go over a number of the different things that I talked about on yesterday, and also look at actions for Photoshop. I've added a link in the description where you guys can download a free action, and I'm going to show you simply enough how to install it. So if you follow that link, it will take you over to this website where there's a number of different things that you guys can experiment with, over time. But right here, this skin retouching action is one that you guys can download for free. And I've never used this. I've never installed this before on my system. So, we're going to both kind of experience this together. So first of all, you want to download the file. Then what will happen is it will download to your download folder. And I have two here that I downloaded, but the one that I'm looking for, if I'm not mistaken, is this one, which is the skin retouching. It's by Spark Stock, I think. Let's make sure it's the right one. But they basically do the same thing. So let's jump over to Photoshop really quick, and I'll show you how to install these. So under your actions panel, now yours may look different than mine. I have this set to button mode. Most people will have this turned off, and they'll see their actions like this. So you'll just see a bunch of folders where all of your actions reside. And to turn button mode on and off, you can just click here on the little hamburger looking icon and choose button mode. Okay? And then also from here, you can load new actions. You can reset your actions. You can clear all actions. I don't suggest ever doing that. You can replace an action if it's faulty or something's going on with it. But for now, we're just going to load an action. So we're going to choose load action, and then we're going to go over to our download folder, click on it, and find that action. So for Photoshop, it's a ATN file that you're looking for. So just select that, and then click open. So now that should have placed that action at the very bottom of my action pack, which is down here. So I can see the actions that it installed. So what I'm going to do really quick here, I'm going to turn off button mode. I'm going to find that action pack, and I'm going to move it all the way to the top of my action stack so that I can easily find it and drop it there. And then I'm going to go back here and turn back on button mode. So when I scroll all the way to the top, the actions that are related to that download will be here. So what I'm seeing is a number of different actions. There's skin airbrushing, redness reduction, brightening of the eyes, just a few things that are there. Advanced, I don't know if that one was a part of it, this advanced frequency separation, maybe, or it may not be. We'll see. But actually, let me separate that with something that I know for a fact, so I won't get them confused. And then I'm going to pull the action panel out. So then now I can see just what came with that, within that action itself, within the action structure. So we have a Mattifier, we have skin airbrushing, we have eye brightening, we have redness reduction, and we have like a contrast filter. Now, these specific things within this action will not do your dodging and burning, frequency separation, or any of those things. But, it's just, for this aspect of it, I'm just showing you how to install actions. So if you download someone's frequency separation actions or skin retouching actions, you're going to install it basically the same way. Okay, so I'm going to redock this. And layers on top. Okay, so there are all my actions. And there are my layers. Okay, so we'll come back to that. So starting off, we're going to look at exactly how I got this shot. The setup from the studio is basically this. We had a seamless background, which is this paper here. We had two lights illuminating the background, and that's what gave us our white. If you're curious, the program that I'm demonstrating this with is Satellite, and it's basically a 3D modeling application, and it allows you to set up different scenarios for photo shoots. So the main light was one large umbrella, which was illuminating the model, and then the camera itself was set like this. So this is the basic setup. That's how I captured the images. Now, back in the day, I was using Nikon, I believe D800 or maybe D850. I can't remember which one. I went through a few Nikons back in the day. And the lights in the studio were all Pro Photos. But you don't have to have, the high-end, Pro Photo lights. You can get away with the Godox lights. You can get away with even more budget lights and still get the same effect. You don't have to have necessarily a high-end, in quotes, professional camera with a professional lens. You just have to understand your f-stop and your lighting ratios. And in a future live, we will, dive a little bit deeper into f-stops as well as lighting ratios and things like that. But, this is the basic lighting. This is how I got the shot. Okay, so let's move over to Capture One. And as you can see here, I have a number of images that I selected from this specific shoot. So if we go through some of these are going to be a little underexposed because I didn't adjust them. I just brought them into Capture One specifically for this video, for this live. So if you look at each one of these, the one thing that you want to always try and maintain whenever you're working with a client or a model or whatever it is that you're getting good catch light in the eyes. That's, basically your catch light is, the lights reflected back into the eyes or from the eyes from whatever lights that are in the room. So that's going to be important, so that way the eyes don't look dead, once you make your captures. The other thing that I want to emphasize with you guys is that if you're working with models or you're working with brands, if you can spend a little bit of time talking, if you're not familiar with the makeup artist, at least try and interact with the makeup artist at some point and talk to them about, the type of makeup that's going to be best suited for your type of photo shoot. Now, most makeup artists who work with photographers, they know how to apply makeup. They don't do a lot of glossy, shiny makeup, things like that, because they know that's going to be an issue with the lighting in the studio. So we're just going to go through a couple of these, they're just different poses. Now, the model in this shoot is not an actual model. She's a friend of the lady who was selling this lingerie and these different pieces. So, she has the body type for the most part, but yet she doesn't have the experience of being a model. So you're going to work with a lot of people, whether they be male or female, and you're going to have to really develop a workflow where you understand the poses that you're trying to capture, and that either you can demonstrate them or you have some type of illustrations to best demonstrate exactly what it is you're trying to capture so that they can kind of replicate or imitate what they see. So from the previous edit we did, we wound up using one of these images. And, that just gives you an idea of, where this was going. Now, with some of these, you may only need a portion of the image, where they just maybe want to show the stockings, or they want to show the shoes, or they want a really close up, of the model or something like that. So it all just really depends on, what the retailer, the designer, whatever their vision is. So you're going to shoot multiple shots. Now, once you have your lighting set up, so I'll give you an example. So here, remember the lighting is coming in from my right, and it's illuminating her face perfectly, right? But once she turns her body in the opposite direction, this becomes a problem with lighting, because now the lighting is coming in from now her back, and it's not really illuminating her face. So you have to keep this in mind. A lot of times when I do these type of shoots now, I'll use two lights on the model as well as two lights on the background. So that way, no matter where they move, I'll still have pretty good illumination on the face. Now, if you're shooting raw, yes, you can always, go in here and, bring up your brightness, bring up your exposure a little bit, and you'll get pretty much where you're at, and you won't lose a lot of detail in the image by just doing that. So shooting raw is also very important. I know a lot of you guys starting out, you're not familiar with, you're not comfortable shooting raw. You're not familiar with the full processing of how you would adjust or edit these raw files. But, in time, you'll learn those things, and you'll realize that by shooting raw, you have so much more flexibility in what you can achieve. Even if you don't get your lighting exactly right, you can still go in and fix an image because all that raw data is still there, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to re-edit the original photo that I did on yesterday. So, or I was thinking about doing this one. Let's see, because this is kind of a fun one. I'm not really all that happy with the facial expression here around the lips, but we may be able to fix a little bit of that too. So, okay, let's do this one. This is a good image. So we're going to open this image in Photoshop. So from Capture One, you would just go Edit With, and then choose the file, the program that you want to edit in. So we're going to edit in Photoshop. Our resolution is 300. Our bit rate is 16-bit, and we're going to open this as a TIFF. So we're going to wait for that to open in Photoshop, and there we go. So let's go ahead and zoom in and start to look at things that we want to correct. So there are some imperfections on the skin. You see how the cord around the neck is all rolled up? That's something else you want to take into consideration. That's why I say tethering is so powerful of a tool when you're editing or when you're capturing these images, because you will see a lot of that stuff, or at least someone might, catch it early on and be able to help you by, your wrangler, your client can go in and then adjust this. Guys, I'm talking especially to my male photographers, do not touch your models. If you need something adjusted, ask the model to do it or ask someone else to do it. Do not put your hands on the model. I don't care how well you know them, that's just not professional within our environment, okay? So for the most part, if you can, bring an assistant, let her bring a friend. If you're working with a female model, I would say that would apply as well with male models. You should never be touching someone. You should always want them to either adjust whatever that needs to be adjusted themselves. If they can't do it themselves, then have someone else do it if you're in an environment where you have more, people working. Okay, so let's go through our normal routine. Let's go to our layers. We're going to duplicate this layer, and on a Mac, that's Command J. And we're going to choose. So you have different tools that you can use to do this, the touch-ups. You can use your selection tool, but I usually use this one because it's just a faster tool to really get in, and it'll auto sample. I mean, everyone's going to have their own preference as to how they, address these things, because I know exactly what I'm looking for. So, and you will over time, trust me, this will become so much of just a normal part of your workflow. You won't even think about it anymore. It'll be like you're flying on auto. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to start removing some of these pimples. Anything that I feel like I don't want to be in the final image, I'm just going to take out. Now, if you're working with a model that's submitting her images or his images to an agency, you don't want to remove anything that's permanent. So if the person has a permanent scar or something like that, you want to leave that in, because only remove things that can either be easily covered by makeup, that didn't get covered by makeup, or things that, for instance, won't be there maybe a week from now, like a pimple. Most likely a pimple won't be on the person's face, a week from, the time of the shoot or something like that. So you can always go in and correct these things. Now, from the business side of photography, if you're doing a photo shoot to enhance your portfolio, then you can go as far as you want to with your editing or whatever you want to do. If this is for a client, you have to set boundaries as to how far you are willing to go with the editing based on, what they're paying you for. So if you're doing a really basic headshot session, where it's going to be, $150, $180 or something like that, that does not include a whole bunch of, high-end photo retouching and things like that. At least it should not. Know your wealth, know your worth, I'm sorry, and make sure that you're getting paid for the work that you're putting in. And I know in the beginning, you just want clients. You just want to start shooting something. But the problem with it is, once you are known as the budget anything, the budget shoe company, the budget lens company, the budget photographer, it is almost impossible to get out of that target market, because that's what people will start to know you as. And I'm not saying that you want to overprice, because you don't. Learn your market based on where you live, and set your prices accordingly. I mean, you can run specials. You can offer, as an example, you can offer maybe more images, than would normally come with the package, 1 or 2 more. I don't mean 15 or 20, and just things to start you out, that may differentiate you from, the competition. But in the beginning, if you're just learning, shoot the people that you know. Photograph your kids, photograph your friends, your significant other. Work with them. If they're understanding, you can make sure you want them to understand that, this is something that you're learning, and you want to become proficient in it. And in order to become proficient in anything, 10,000 hours, you want to put in the time to learn as much as you possibly can, which will enable you to grow. As a photographer, a creator, I literally watch, tons of other people's tutorials and their videos, because I feel like regardless of how much I may think I know, there's always a more efficient way to do it. There's always a better way to, achieve the same goal. Now, you don't want to oversaturate yourself, with just tons and tons of unnecessary knowledge. But I don't think, honestly, in my heart, that any knowledge is unnecessary, or it doesn't serve a purpose. Learn as much as you can and never stop learning. And I was telling someone last night that I was chatting with online, I learn more teaching others. By just learning how to teach, you become a better student of life, of your industry, or whatever it is. Things that you may have taken for granted. Now all of a sudden you have to articulate this to someone and explain to them how this thing works, or how to do a certain thing. And as you're doing that, a lot of times you may find some shortcuts, or you may start to realize there's a faster, more efficient way, to achieve the same thing. So anyway, I'm just going to go through here and grab the majority of these images. These imperfections. I see a few more. Some of them will catch when we get to a full dodge and burn, if I do dodging and burning on these images. This one I probably won't. Let me see. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit and see. She has a little bit of red in her eyes, but it's not a lot. So you could just go in and just touch these up. Grab like little stray eyelashes, things like that. But also remember that most of these images are going to be viewed on the web. So a lot of your detail work will never be seen because people will be viewing these on a smartphone or a tablet. And even if they're looking at it on a computer, you know, most people don't have 4 and 6K monitors, so they're not going to see that detail. Plus, depending on where you upload these files to, the recompression is, you know, I mean, that stuff is real. You know, if you upload it to Instagram, you know, the image that you captured, the image that you edited is nothing, not even close to the image that, you know, is going to be displayed on Instagram. So, you know, just keep that in mind. And there's a few little tricks that I've learned, you know, to make the images look even sharper, you know, when you're going to put them on, you know, Instagram or something like that, just to maintain that sharpness. So I would say for the most part, we're good with the touch-ups. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run my frequency separation action. And all I'm doing here is looking at the blur layer. And I'm going to zoom in on her face. And this is where I determine how much blur I want. So we don't want to go too far with it. So let's say for this image, yeah, 7.2 is where I'm going to sit on that. So now when I go back over to my layers, the frequency separation action has created a folder. So then you have 2 layers in your folder. You have a high layer, which is your texture, and a low layer, which is your color. So we're going to zoom in on her face, get a little bit closer. That's a little too close. And then I'm going to turn off the texture layer, so all you see is the blur. And then if I turn off the blur layer, now all you see is the texture. Okay? So from this layer, you can still go in and correct little imperfections. You know, like if you wanted to go in and you see something within the texture and you select your texture layer, and you could use your clone stamp as an example. And say, for instance, I see here, I want to sample here because I want to remove this mole. And you can just go in. Also take a look at, you know, what your flow and your opacity is whenever you're, you know, cloning something out. But that's just a quick way to do it. If you see something, you know, at a certain point, you know, just select and then, you know, clone it out. You see something, just go in and just clone it out. But you want to try and stay as close to the thing that you're trying to clone out, because you want to try and maintain the same color and texture right around the area. So let's say like here, oops, I could choose that. Let's bring the flow up to 100. So let's say I chose that. And I could just clone that. I don't know why that's not going. Okay, so let's go back to our color layer. And here's where we're going to start mixing these colors. So let's zoom out a little bit more. And then you're going to go over to your brush, choose your mixer brush. And right now I have my wet set at 10. I'm going to reduce that a little bit. I have my wet at 10. I have my load up here at 75. I have my mix at 90 and my flow at 100. I'm not using a Wacom tablet, nor am I using an iPad or anything like that where it's pressure sensitive. I'm using a MacBook, and I'm just using the touchpad on the MacBook with my finger. So we're going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit more so we can get a little bit closer. And from your texture layer, you're going to come down to your filters, and you're going to create a black and white filter. And then you're going to bring down the reds until you can really start to see where the transitions are in the shadows, the highlights, and the midtones. So you guys should be able to see that pretty clearly. This helper layer just helps you to see the colors that you're going to be blending so that you're not blending blind. So if you turn this off, you don't necessarily see that. But when you turn it back on, you can see that, this is a highlighted area here. This is a shadow. You start to see the little the transitions between the two, little things like that. So now we have our mixer brush selected. We're going to go to our low layer. You can even turn the texture layer off if you want to, just so you're only affecting the colors. So we're going to go in here and we're just going to start mixing these colors and blending them in. Now, if you have a Wacom tablet or you're thinking about investing in one, it's worth it because it will speed up your workflow. It'll give you a lot better pen control, pressure control when you're applying, when you're working with these colors. And I have, like I've mentioned this before, I have a Wacom-like tablet, but I don't know what in the world I did with the pen. And I had it recently, and I think I may have packed it away somewhere. I don't know. But the iPad also is useful, very, very useful for this type of work. And if you're on a more modern Mac, you can connect via Sidecar, and you can either mirror your screen or you can just use it as an external monitor, and you could drag Photoshop over, and then you can just use your Apple Pencil if you have one, to do basically the same thing. Be careful as you're mixing these colors because it has a tendency to change the shape of the area if you blend too much or you blend too many colors together. But in this situation, I don't think it's going to be that much of it's not going to matter too much, because we're going to blend the skin because we just want the consistency of the skin tone as much as possible. So this highlighted area here, you blend this separately. Wherever there's highlights, shadows, you blend them separately. You don't want to mix shadows and highlights together. You want to maintain some type of contrast between the two, because most images are going to have highlights, midtones, and shadows. Unless you're doing something really, really high key, keep that in mind as you're blending these. And then every once in a while, stop and then take a look at what you've done. So I could turn off my helper layer and I can see the skin. Then I could come down here to the lower layer and on the little eyeball here, hold down your Option key and click on it. It will turn everything above it off so you can see the before, the after, the before, after. And then if you want to see it more, exactly what you're doing, you turn your texture layer back on, and then when you turn it off, you see that. So instantly I see an area right here where I have the pointer that looks like a little scar. So when I turn this off, I can see that right there. But I'm also turning off the helper layer. I mean the layer where I went in and removed a lot of the imperfections. So, keep that in mind. So we're going to turn everything back on. Turn all layers back on. And go back to our, we still want to help a layer on. So go back to our lower layer and just continue where you were. So just start, from there, mixing. I'm going to turn this texture layer back off. And just go in and start mixing as much as you can. And what you're looking for is just the consistency of the entire color where it's all blended together. If you have painted before, it's basically the same thing. If you have not, I was talking to another photographer a while back, and I was saying to him that even though we don't do a lot of painting or drawing or something like that as photographers, it is still a very good skill set to acquire because it will help you a lot in your editing work. Once you acquire those skills, understanding how an artist, paints with a paintbrush, you're learning basically the same thing. This is some of the the basic skills that most professional retouchers learn. Now, a lot of them, especially, your high-end retouchers, these guys are really, really good at micro dodging and burning. They spend a lot of hours on one image to make that image just completely flawless. Well, for our workflow, that's just not practical. We're not going to spend 4 hours or 5 hours editing one photo. At least most of us aren't. I mean, some of you guys might do that. I don't. I just want, to have a really nice image for the client, the model, or whomever it is, and, just do the best that you can with the skills that you've acquired. And that's why I say I want to always keep learning, because trust me, these things will benefit you in the long run. And the more you do this, the faster you'll become at it. Now, yes, there are plugins that can get you pretty close to this. Portraiture is one. You can install portraiture on almost any, in Photoshop, and it'll go in and it'll look for the skin tone, and it'll automatically blur out the skin tone. And then you can go in and if you bring it in as a layer, then you could always go in and say, okay, well, no, it blurred the lips or it blurred the eyes, and then you just create a mask, and then just bring back the sharpness, for the eyes or the skin or whatever it is that areas that you want to readjust. So we're going to go in here. I'm trying to speed this up, guys, because we still have a few steps we want to go through. Now, if all you're doing is creating, these high key like images, seamless paper images, then this is all you really need to do. Is just, clean up the skin, brighten up the eyes, whiten the eyes where needed. And the more you practice this, the better you will get at it. I can't emphasize that enough. Practice makes perfect. And it'll seem like sometimes, when you're first starting out, you're not getting the results that you're looking for, and that's okay. That's a part of the journey. I didn't start off, where I'm at now. I mean, I wish somehow I knew, all the things that I've learned, but that's not the reality of the world. It takes time to acquire these skills. That's why you'll hear a lot of motivation coaches talking about the 10,000 hours, that it takes roughly 10,000 hours to become proficient at something. And I honestly believe that to be true. When you break those 10,000 hours down, to realistic numbers, let's say if you're working a job, 9 to 5, and you're working 40 hours or 50 hours a week, then how many hours, how many weeks would you have to work to be considered a professional or an expert in your specific field? One of the things that I've noticed a lot, in life is that I meet a lot of people, with high degrees, and almost none of them are working in the industry or working on the level that they went to school, to get their degree in. So just because you went to school for something or you got a degree in something doesn't mean that's what you're actually going to be doing. Many times, all that degree does is open the door for you, to have a different career. Now, it may be somewhat related. You're a photographer. Okay, you want to be a photographer? Great. You also need to learn makeup theory, color theory. There's so many things that you need to learn that you can learn casually. That means, what I mean by casually is that you learn it, as you go. You don't have to, drive yourself insane and, like you're cramming for a test. Just try to, learn something new every day, and you set yourself up for success. Once you get to a point where you think you know it all and you know exactly what to do, and no one can teach you anything new, you've already started to fail, in my eyes, because I don't care how much you know of any subject, you can always learn more. You can always learn a new, more efficient way to do something. Okay, so I think we've got hit all of those spots. Let's turn our texture layer on. Okay, so now that we're at this stage, one of the things that you can do to even get better skin consistency, you know, that blurriness, the blending of the colors and everything, is that while you're still on your color layer, you can grab your lasso tool and you can start lassoing specific areas. Let's say like right here on her cheek. Then go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and you set your radius. So let's say I'm going to bring that down just a little bit, maybe to about 6. And then I'm going to just click OK. And then I could just keep going. Oops. I know. Then I could keep going. And, okay, so that's not working for me. That's where a pen comes in so much handier, because then you can really draw these areas. And then filter. You don't have to go back to blur, glossy, and blur because it's going to be right here. So just select it, and then just go ahead and grab other areas that you may want to also add some additional blur to. And you just choose those areas. Remember, you're only working on the color. So you can blur that and go up here. I'm not going to do her whole body. I'm just showing you how to do it. So you pick those areas, so on and so on, right? And especially if you have a problem area, you know, like where you see an area that you're like, okay, I really want this area to be blurred because, you know, there was like a few little stretch marks or something, okay? And you can go there and that'll help, you know, help clean that up. And this pen. So you can easily go in and pick your troubled areas where you know it needs to be just a little bit more as you see it. Okay, so we've done that. So let's zoom all the way out. And we're gonna start turning things off. So we're gonna turn off this black and white layer, and we're gonna actually go ahead and just remove that. We don't need it anymore. And our high layer is back on. Zoom in a little bit here. And we're gonna go from our before to our after, before, after. And it's little subtle changes. You know, you don't have to go, you know, crazy overboard, okay? So let's say we're good with this. I mentioned things about her face, you know, and her expression or what have you that I'd want to correct. So what I'll do there is I'm gonna deselect everything. So I'm not clicked on anything on the layer palette. I'm going to hit Shift, Option, Command, and E. And that's going to create a stamp layer. So what this layer is everything that's below it has been added to this layer. So that way, any other modifications I make will only be applied to this layer here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this in Liquify. And I'm going to adjust a few things. Because again, like I said before, a lot of times you're working with individuals in some of these shoots that are not models. So they don't understand what their face looks like when they're doing certain things, you know, in their mind, you know, it looks one way to them, but in reality to the camera, it looks completely different, right? So I adjusted her jawline just a little bit. I'm going to adjust her smile, and I'm going to bring it up just a little bit, but I don't want it to look ridiculous. So, and I'm going to bring her lip up just a touch. And then I'm going to go in and further shape this a little bit closer up, but I'm just showing you basically the basic stuff, right? Also, you can enlarge the eyes just a little bit. And since we're already in here, we're going to go ahead and reshape some of the imperfections in the body. So I'm going to grab my push tool, and I'm just going to start gently pushing in some of these problem areas. Like here around the legs. I'm going to just even those out. Bring this leg in just a little bit. And even with your panty lines or something like that, you can also adjust those a little bit if you need to clean up a line that's not straight or the way that you want it. You can just go in and just adjust that a little bit. And I'm just going to just Make this just a little bit smaller. And if you zoom in on these, you'll start to see like little ripples. You don't want that. So you want to just take your time and try and make this as consistent as possible. Almost always, you know, when women are wearing these type of stockings, they pull in on the legs really tight. So, you know, you just might want to go in and just fix that up just a little bit. Bring that down. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I mentioned what I was going to do here on the lips. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this brush a little bit smaller. And I'm going to go in and just kind of reshape her lip. Let's give it a little bit more roundness. Bring that down. And this corner up, just so it looks more like a smile. Okay. Cool. Okay, so let's zoom out. And that's our after. So we're going to go back to our bottom layer, click on that little eyeball, hold down Alt. That's before, after, before, and after. And if you zoom in real close to the face, you really start to see, you know, the little things I just did in Liquify. So we turn that off and back on. Okay. Now I didn't whiten her eyes or, you know, add any lipstick or anything like that. I didn't whiten her teeth so far, but you can easily do that. And there's a ton of actions out there and a number of different techniques you can go about doing this. If you guys want to invest in a panel, you know, like I said, the Retouch Pro panel it's very basic, but it's a very powerful tool. So because all it really does is it gives you basic actions that do a specific thing. So if I go here to lips and teeth, and I say I want to whiten teeth, so I'm going to just click on here where it says whiten teeth. And then if I go back to my layers, I'll see that there's a new folder called Whiten Teeth. And then if you notice here, the layer mask is black. So your foreground color needs to be white. And you're going to choose a normal brush. Ideally, you want it to be a round, soft brush. And then you want to just bring it down. So it's just large enough to get in there to where the teeth area is, right? So right now the opacity is at 100 and the flow is at 50 and it's set to normal. So if I just go in here and just start painting away, and I can already see this is way too white, but I'm going to do it anyway just so I can see where everything is falling, right? And then we're going to just go in here and whiten her teeth. Take your time. And draw that in. Just a little bit back there, but it doesn't have to be a lot. So, you know, anyone looking at this, you can say, whoa, wow, that's really bright. Yeah, that's like neon. So then you can start bringing down your opacity and find your happy medium. You know, teeth aren't perfectly white, just like the eyes aren't perfectly white. So we just want to see. That still may be a little too much. So your opacity versus your flow, you can adjust the fill, and you start to see more subtle changes, which is a little bit different than the opacity itself. So if we bring the opacity back up, and then we go down to our fill, bring that up to 100, but if you start bringing it down, it really softens the effect because it doesn't need to be perfect. I mean, perfectly white is what I'm saying. So the same thing would be with the eyes. You know, if you wanted to whiten her eyes or, you know, clean up her eyes, you could go back to that same panel and there's one for eyes. So if you say, I want to whiten the eyes, so you just click on whiten eyes, go back. And now you have a new folder, which is Whiten Eyes. And you already have your layer mask, which is black. Your foreground color is white. You have your small brush. You could just literally go in here and just start brushing away in the areas that should be white. And in the beginning, just go ahead and, apply it as you see it, just so you can make sure you're getting all the areas. You're not missing anything. Now this panel right now, I think is about $25 or something like that. It's not very expensive. I did set up an affiliates link for this panel because I think it's one of the best panels, especially for somebody just, starting out. So I made a little mistake there where I went into her waterline. So all you have to do is hit X on your keyboard, and that will switch this from white to black, and then just paint in where you made your little mistake. And then X again to go back to white. Now, we know that is way too bright, right? So let's try our fill first and bring down the fill. And just looking for it to just lighten up a little bit. And then let's zoom all the way out. Let's zoom all the way out. Yeah, that's fire. Okay, so there are a couple of other things that you can do to finish your image up. So let's say we're good with everything that's here, right? Go ahead and flatten it if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. The other thing is, for a lot of you guys who may not know this, you can go into your history, and you can always go back if something, you want to go back and look at something. So you can click on your history, history tab, and you can go all the way back to, wherever all of your different steps are if you need to. But, so we're going to flatten this image. And then we're going to apply color. So we're going to go over to our original image here, and I'm going to use a different panel. And this one is called Color Map X. So we're going to click on that. And what this panel does is it identifies certain colors in a specific image, and it copies them, right? So we're just going to hit Analyze, and it's going to go through, and these are the colors that it sees. Now I can increase the sample. So let's say I bring the sample up to 7, and then I hit Analyze. Well, it doesn't seem to like that very much. So let's select parts of the image, and then Analyze and see what it comes up with. Okay, so now you see all the different colors that is selected, right? You can go here, and you can say Save as Preset, and then you can just give this a name, I'm going to call this Latin Skin. Okay, so now that's saved. So then when you go back over to your original image, you can just go to that preset and hit Apply. I'm going to close this because we don't need it. And I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, guys. So I'm going to turn this off and then back on. Look at the warmth it brought to the image. Now, if you think that's too much, we can adjust our fill, because the opacity is already at 50%. So by just adjusting the fill, we can really target exactly where we want that, to sit. So if we're happy with that, we're good to go, right? Zoom all the way out. Okay, that's a win. All right, guys, so this is very similar to the live that I was going to do on yesterday, which I did do, but then my audio failed, so, things happen. But again, hopefully you guys have learned something, from this live, and you'll be able to, bring this and use this in your everyday workflow. whether it's the lighting setups or, how to install some of these actions, as well as, other skills that you'll acquire over time. So I really, really encourage you to post your images, take photos and, do a little basic walkthrough, edit your photos, and then put it out there, and each other, talk to each other, and this way you will get positive feedback, or it won't always be positive, okay? And it shouldn't be. It should be realistic. Now, this group, different than most others, this group is a positive, safe place. We want you to post your images. I want you to ask questions. I will not allow abuse. I will not allow someone to abuse you or talk down to you. That's not what we're about. So we want to learn together. We want to grow together. That's the key. Show respect and you'll get respect. So look out for each other, work with each other, talk to each other. I'm around all the time. Talk to me, and we'll get, some positive things done. All right, guys, I will catch you guys in the next live, which will hopefully be tomorrow. I will repost this live on YouTube and a few other places. I may go in like I do most times and edit down some of it, for like the Instagram TV and things like that. But if you're catching this live on YouTube or some other platform, you're more than welcome to join our group and start participating and following along with, what we're doing. All right, guys, I will catch you in the next video. Stay safe, wash your hands, take care of your loved ones, and create something amazing. Peace. I'm out.